that so I can see that later. I like that at all. Thanks for having me. I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to talk to all of you. I feel like I know you guys. This is my hometown team, so I'm really excited to be here, and I can't thank you enough for all of your continued support, personally and professionally, and also for the portfolio and obviously our growers. And for us, that is really what it's all about. We are, we go to the next slide. We'll tell you who we are, because the growers are really the thing that drives all of the decisions we make, and all of the market work we do, and of course the wines. So I put this in here because I think it's really important. We are a very, very tiny company, so there are only 6 of us. We are American owned, based on Carlsbad, California, so San Diego-ish. We warehouse on both coasts. We have everything in Sonoma, because German wine crushes in the Midwest. There's a lot of German heritage here, as all of you probably know, and some of you are probably, because we represent 21 of the best producers in the country, family owned, family run, some sort of eye to sustainability, small to medium-ish production in some cases, like, you know, Fritz Mueller is one of our biggest volume brands for sure. And man, you guys are doing a great job with the wines here, so thank you, thank you, thank you. That's who we are. What's next for you is to understand what's going on in Germany now. When I do these for consumers, I give them the history of Germany and the this and the that. You're here to sell the wine, which sometimes you don't need to know about Charlemagne, planting, Pinot Noir, blah, 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 right? That's really not the most important thing for you, and I think for a retailer and on-premise buyer, what's really important is to tell them what's going on in Germany now, because we all have this idea, a lot of us, although younger drinkers don't have it, so be on the lookout. Younger drinkers, Riesling, we love it. But older drinkers have this idea, you know, what is it? Older drinkers have this idea, sorry. Yes, sorry, I shouldn't have them talk, sorry. It's sweet and it's cheap and it's grandma's Riesling, right? This is grandma's wine, this is what grandma drank. And what's going on in Germany could not be farther from that right now. Younger drinkers don't have this baggage, and so I go out and I do these in-stores, and sometimes I do these in-stores in places where I'm like, Lord help me. And I get like a 23-year-old dude walking up in camo and a beard, and he's like, oh yeah, I love a dry Riesling. I'm like, yes you do, I know you do. So I hear all this negative market talk all the time about, oh, Gen Z's not drinking, what are we gonna do? They are drinking. Pay attention to them. They're just not drinking Cali Cab, right? Like, we're over it. They also don't want to drink what their parents drank. They want something that is a little bit more flavor forward, like think seltzer, right? And what is more flavor forward than Riesling? Get out. Nothing, period. And what's going on in Germany right now is dry Riesling. So more dry Riesling than ever. Whenever someone wants to tell me it's sweet, I'm like, you should taste this one, because it'll rip your face off, right? I'm so excited. I love that. So more dry Riesling. We're bringing in more dry Riesling than ever, although, and I have some bonus wines here today, we still have some of those classic, more residual sugar wines, but they're in balance rather than them being like a Blue Nun, Black Cat version, right? Burgundian grapes, which you stock a lot of. So we're talking about Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc. High quality Zect, and for everybody in the office today, sorry. We started with Von Buhl Zect, which we'll talk about just really briefly since it's a bonus wine, but more high quality sparkling wine. Zect is just a word for German sparkling wine. It doesn't have to be traditional method, but we don't have to get into all of that yet. Call me, I'd love to talk. Major focus on sustainability. The country of Germany in general is so focused on this place that we live and really taking care of it, because if we put things into the ground that are poisonous, what do we think is going to happen, right? So they are incredibly focused. They are so good at recycling and all of the important things that maybe we don't pay as much attention to. And then, as I was talking about, both with drinkers and with winemakers, there are a lot of new generations taking over. And taking over from parents or grandparents or whatever that looks like. And so there is an energy and a vibrance. And again, like the drinkers, they don't want to do the same thing that their parents all did, right? And so we are seeing this greater diversity, higher quality across the board, focus on sustainability. How many more buzzwords can I say? Everybody's going to be drinking German wine. And then the stats are, no one wants to think about Germany for wine. However, it is the 9th largest wine production country in the world. First in Riesling, shocking, right? First in worldwide Pinot Blanc production, second in Pinot Gris, and third in Pinot Noir. So whenever I tell consumers that, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, you just don't know. Like, come over here to the best kept secret. And in 20 years, maybe I'll regret sharing it, but maybe we'll all be rich and it won't even matter, right? All right.
Perfect.
Figured out.
Sorry.
This is another map of the country, and I work for GWC, but I also work for Wines of Germany, and I've been with them for 5 years. So I get super nerdy into the nitty-gritty of the country because everyone thinks about beer country, and that's wonderful, but that's Bavaria, and we are nowhere near that, right? German wine growing is really southwestern portion of the country, 13 distinct regions. You don't need to memorize them all. Your consumers aren't going to care. You know that this comes from the Pfalz, right? It's warm, it's sunny, we love it. All of them have Riesling planted, all of them have Pinot Noir planted, and then throughout the country, there are a lot of other great varieties going on. Go ahead, sir. Boom, okay. When we talk about our climate, northern climate, cool climate, for reference, we are sitting at approximately about 45 degrees north latitude here, and Germany is between 48 and 51. However, they've got this sea up here that helps moderate some of this climate. So while they do have a continental climate, they don't get as cold as us and they don't get as hot as us, right? They do get those extremes, but on the whole, they are not nearly as extreme. But when we talk about wine growing in the world, 50 degrees north is about that limit, and Germany is right there. And what that does for the wines is it gives us acid and beautiful pure fruit characteristics. The other thing is that all of these wine growing regions, all of them, are on a river somewhere, right? There's a river that region is essentially built around, and that's because historically, when there was less global warming, I haven't studied climatic patterns for centuries, but when there was less of a global warming influence, you needed these rivers to really warm the area around it. A lot of these places are also steep slopes, and you'll see some of those pictures as well. But what's important, cool continental climate, that gives us acid, freshness, purity of fruit. And when we have those things, we have food pairings, and that's all that I could ever want in life. Go to the next one. Oh, and that kind of talks us through the thing. Dry autumns, rainfall, moderate temperatures, plenty of sunshine, fruit-driven acid. I don't even need these slides, let's be real. Okay, so we talked about Riesling, we talked about Spätburgunder or Pinot Noir. Don't be afraid of the German, a lot of consumers are. Spätburgunder it's Pinot Noir, right? Consumers are never afraid, Pinot Noir is actually French, right? They're like, oh, you put the English on this bottle. I'm like, well, it's French, but you do you. They're not afraid of French or Italian, but German is very scary to them. So most of our growers put the English or the French on that front label, and that's intentional to sell the wine, right? Because if they walked up and saw Spätburgunder, they might be like, well, I don't know what that is, I'm not taking a chance. But if they see Pinot Noir, they feel comfortable, and that's the important thing, right? As far as reds go, the other items that you carry that we have would be a Limburger and a Trollinger and a Portugieser. Yeah, you have a single red of Portugieser in this book. Yes. That's very rare and very unique, so it's really exciting to me. I don't get to sell that in any other market. And then when we get into whites, Müller-Thurgau, which is in the Fritz Müller. Always Scheurebe, Sylvaner, Weissburgunder, Grauburgunder. Weissburgunder is just Pinot Blanc, Grauburgunder is just Pinot Gris, and Chardonnay, which we're going to taste today too, which is really exciting. This is all that I do full time, and I will tell you that I still find it boring, and it's confusing. It just, bottom line is, there are days where I'm like, I gotta look that up. I'm not really sure on that. So don't think that you need to have an understanding of German wine law to sell German wine. And in fact, I would tell you, for all practical applications, you don't need to know any of this. But I'm still going to talk about it. And if you're still interested, there's a podcast on Sound TV that I did that'll get you super nerded out. So if you are really interested in that, you should take a look at that. There will be some upcoming May programming on 750 and Pro V about German wine. I think they're doing a couple of videos. I blind tasted a wine for them. It was really fun. I had a great time with it. But if you're interested in being a super nerd, great. And also, don't think that you need to understand the 1971 wine law to sell this.
We're going to have you sign a bunch of those sandwiches.
Yeah.
Before as parting gifts.
Yeah, I will sign. Yeah, it's so famous. But for all those people, like, I'm a super nerd, right? I care about that crap, but you don't need to know all of those things, and don't be intimidated by that to sell German wine, because the flavor profiles, the pairings, like, it's here for you if you want it, and don't think that that is something that you have to know, because when we go out and we talk to consumers, I literally never talk to them about wine law, because they're already scared that they don't know enough, and if I launch into GG sites, I lose them, right? Why do they care about that? Because they don't. This is our quality pyramid. Everything you guys see falls into this quality tastes fine and product tastes fine category. Yes. And if you want to get super nerdy, we have this. This is your ripeness level. And you are carrying some of these ripeness wines. So we've got Kabinett, Spätlese, and Auslese here in the market. You can kind of see the grapes that correspond to those levels of ripeness. And what I will tell you is that when we are in these ripeness levels, and it is technically a ripeness, this scale was developed when Germany had a difficult time attaining ripeness. And that is not the story anymore. So these were really important, and the highest quality growers subscribed to this because it meant that their wine didn't taste like watered down lime juice, right? You carry quite a few of these. Here's where we get super confusing, is that you can have a Kabinett Trocken, and Trocken just means dry. Some growers, none of ours, I think. I say that and I'm gonna go there in 2 weeks and they're gonna be like, look at this Kabinett Trocken. Some growers will label Kabinett Trocken. Trocken means dry, and that means it's Kabinett level ripeness, but the wine is dry. And this is where I think it gets super confusing, because we can have Spätlese Trocken and Auslese Trocken. I don't know why they are labeling within that Prädikat system if they have a dry wine, because consumers don't understand this anyway, so what are you doing to yourself? But some of them, most notably here in this market, Clover Prep, does that. They famously do that. For practical purposes here, if you see a Kabinett wine, like the Bruno Kabinett, or the Bruno Spätlese, or the Munkhoff Auslese, you can know that those wines have some sort of residual sugar. And that you shouldn't be afraid of residual sugar, because they have an application. They have a place within the world too, and for the most part, and the one I have with me is Munkhoff, for the most part, that place, whenever anyone's scared of sugar, you know, it's called balance and context. So, do we have enough acid to balance out the sugar? Yes? Okay, load me up with sugar, I don't care. And Americans try to say, oh no, I'm gonna drink a dry white wine. It's like this status symbol now, right? Well, your Chemis has so much more sugar than any of the wines in my portfolio. But when I tell consumers that, they look at me like I kicked the dog, right? Like, who is, get her out of here. She's terrible. But you know, it's things like the Meiomi and the Chemis, but most Napa Valley Cabernet has much more residual sugar than 80% of our portfolio. But it's the thing that they have internalized, and we as human beings really want to validate our own opinions. We know this on so many levels in the world, right? And so we seek out opportunities to validate the things that we think. So we taste a Riesling, and I've blinded people on Riesling, and they're like, oh, it's my favorite wine of the night. And I'll tell them it's Riesling. I did this in an event, and she's like, I thought it was sweet. And I'm like, no, you literally said it was your favorite wine of the night. Like, help me help you. No, I thought it was sweet. We want to reinforce the ideas that we have, which is basically, it's my job in life to do the opposite, I guess, which is sometimes fun and sometimes terrible and frightening.
But we do have some wines with a little bit of residual sugar that have great balance. And when we talk about context, anything that's spicy, okay, you can go into any sort of food that has heat, right? So ceviche, so some of our cabinet Rieslings with ceviche. Hello, if we have a little bit of heat and anywhere there's citrus, give me that cabinet Riesling. Cabinet is my favorite style because I think it is really elegant, and when they're well balanced, that is the thing I want to drink all day because it's 8.5%. So we also call that a day drinking wine. We also call that a brunch wine because it's better than any bad mimosa you've ever had. And we also call it a cooking wine because while you're cooking, you can realistically drink a cabinet and still be able to finish the meal, right? You can get there. And you know, we're so far from Thanksgiving, but my sweet aunt makes the driest turkey I've ever had in my life. And I always bring cabinet Riesling. In the first few years, they were like, oh, you brought that sweet wine again. No. Now you have to bring like 5 bottles because it's the first thing that goes. Anything with a little residual sugar on that Thanksgiving table.